So let's have a look at functions and what type of things you should know about functions. These things are things that matter on many programming languages recognize functions. Pretty much, I think even some of the ones that went back in the old 8-bit processors probably recognized functions. I mean, it's old. Most languages will recognize functions, even scripts, JavaScripts, web page scripts. They're a way of having some code that you can repeat very easily. So they're very useful. And let's take a look at some things that we should point out about functions. So let's take a look at our sample function here on the screen. Here I have the name of the function. You might, before that, happen to have a modifier to that, if it's a public, if it's on a object or something like that, or if it's in a module. Is it a public function? And a return value type. Some languages require that, some of them are automatic. You may even have no return value type, and sometimes you have to declare that. And then you can pass them by reference or by value. Now, to pass an argument, and that's what we show here. We show two different arguments on here. Two different arguments, and we have type declared on here. Both of these are types of string, and you can declare types on some languages you don't. But by ref or by val. Sometimes if you're passing by reference, which is what by ref is, and by val is by value. If you're passing an argument by reference, it depends on the language. Some of them will block you from sending a string literal there. So it gives you that disadvantage. But the advantage is now you have something that you can modify within the function, and it will be modified outside the function. So let's say you're going to write a program that checks for certain things inside that function. You have a string. You want to clean up a string. You want to, let's say, remove white space on either side of it. So inside that function, it's going to search through and eradicate any white space on either side of that string. And if you pass it by reference, you can work on the existing string. And then it will simply modify that string, and you don't have to return a value, or you could even return the value as well. That way, the advantage with that as well is that you can modify multiple different strings at once. Maybe you do want to have, maybe you want to return some information, and then you also want to make it to where you can optionally pass something by reference that returns information about what was done. The thing is, it's an extra way to returning information, and the way that works is it sends the memory address of the variable to the function, as opposed to just the information from that. As opposed to by value, it is sending just the information. It's creating a copy of that information. That way you can mess with that all you want to in the function, and you're not going to mess with the original, which is good for some reasons too. So you can create a string literal there more often. Some languages, they don't care if you send a string literal on by ref. But it's good to know which language is yours, especially if you're debugging, because if your function is changing a variable and then that's being changed in all of the code after the function, it probably got sent by reference. If you can send that by value, that could fix the problem. But regardless, that could be a source of that problem. And then we've also got an optional item, and sometimes they require that you get, sometimes that's how you declare optional, is based on just having a different value there. And some of them, they don't require this. They have a default for each type. It just depends on your language that you're working with. But that means that I can call this, if I have this is optional, now I can call this function like I did down here, where I return the value here, called the function, and I have to have this because this is not optional. I have to send my variable up. That's the string here. I'm sorry, that's the arg1. And then over here, though, this is optional for arg2. So I could just end it right here with the parenthesis, or I can have this in here. But I can't send 3. It's not going to let me do that because it will support 1 to 2 arguments. And you're not going to be able to put any required arguments after an optional argument. Some support named arguments as well, which means I could put, arg1 down here. I could put arg1 equals and my variable. And then I can rearrange the order. That's the advantage with that, is now I can say, arg2 equals whatever, comma, arg1 equals, and I don't have to have them in the right order. And then I can call stuff and completely ignore things that are optional. So those are some things to look at on functions. Functions as well, when they run, if I was running this in code, so as I was going to mention here, that my variable, if I declared it up here and set it to be something, then I could run this. If it was, since that's a by ref, if it changed it inside this function, when it returns all the code after that, that new variable will be that new value. Functions, they run when they're called, they run, they do what they need to do. If they call other functions, they do what they need to do. They return back to that function. But once a function's done running, it returns back, returns its value here, and continues with additional code below that. Thank you for watching.